Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff operations officer, assisted the national security team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the vice commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
In Trump's first 100 days as president, he made it abundantly clear veterans were a major priority, and he was in a hurry. In less than 6 months since he was sworn into office, President Trump signed the VA Accountability and Whistleblower Protection Act. This would allow us to fire bad VA employees, especially those who allowed vets to die on secret wait lists. The next summer, he signed the VA Mission Act, which provided vets choice in their health care. These reforms brought the VA to the 21st century and likely saved thousands of lives. President Trump kept his promise to our nation's heroes, and for that I say thank you, President Trump.
Back to the Rob Maness Show. We're live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. Well, you just saw it. Veterans are a Trump priority. I served as a surrogate on the Veterans for Trump Coalition, and the priorities only matter, though, when they turn into results. And today we're talking about two pieces of unfinished business that every American who wears the uniform or loves someone who does or has worn the uniform needs to know about. First is the Taking Care of America's Veterans Act, and second, and they can both be passed at the same time, is the Major Richard Starr Act. Joining me live are two men who've lived the cost of service and are still fighting the fight. First is David Starr, retired Army First Sergeant. He served in secure communications, supported Secret Service missions, finished as a first sergeant in the National Guard, then put in 25 years with the FBI. His younger brother, Army Major Richard Starr, was the namesake of the bill that would finally end the Wounded Warrior Tax, the unfair offset that docks combat injured retirees earned military retirement when they also receive VA disability. Richard died in 2021, and David picked up his brother's last mission and has not put it down. And we're also joined by William Brooks, Mississippi Army National Guardsman, deployed to Iraq in 2005, and on March 29th of that year, a roadside bomb took both of his legs above the knee. 13 months at Walter Reed, then medical retirement, and he's been living the consequences of that policy that the Richard Starr Act is supposed to fix every single day ever since. These two men aren't lobbyists. They're the reason this legislation exists. And today we're going to hear exactly where the Major Richard Starr Act stands, what TACAVA, the Take Care of America's Veterans Act, would do, and why Congress still hasn't gotten it across the finish line. David and William, welcome to the Rob Maness Show, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
Sir. Well, it's my pleasure to have you guys on. I'm honored you would give us the time. But this is just critically important. I've been supporting the TACAVA Act through Veteran Action. That was Mark Lucas, you saw at the intro video there, who started Veteran Action a few years ago to do this sort of advocacy work. And Richard, I guess let's start with your brother and how his story has become the driving force behind what I think is of the 60 plus pieces of legislation in TACAVA, the Major Richard Starr Act is the one that has to be passed. And then we can get to the community care fixes and those kind of things.
Yeah.
Tell us about your brother and why his name is on this bill.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. So as you went ahead and said, my younger brother, Richard, he went ahead and he's a fighter and always was. So when he went ahead and was medically discharged after multiple combat deployments, decades of service as a combat engineer, as an enlisted soldier, and then also as a commissioned officer. He was deeply heartbroken that his years of service were not recognized. It was just shock. He saw his leave and earnings statement, the top line, this is what your retirement pay is. Mm-hmm. Then the next line is the offset, and the bottom line, zero and stuff. So he went ahead and at that time, his doctors said that he had less than a year left of a life, the stage 4 lung cancer that he developed from his multiple Desert Storm, Desert Shield deployments and multiple GWAT was adding up to him. As an enlisted soldier, he spent over 2 months inside the burning oil fields of Kuwait trying to cap the fires. And I guess the fires stayed inside of him because he contacted a friend of his when he was living in Florida, who was a lawyer. She knew Congressman Bill Rackus and stuff, and they started the conversation. Congressman Bill Rackus's father started the 2003, 2004 initiative to provide concurrent receipt for our 20-year retirees, and he picked up the ball to go ahead and draft the legislation to go ahead and allow our Chapter 61, that means our medically disabled, the very servicemen that each branch of the military have deemed that their wounds, that their disabilities that they incurred in combat are so grave that they can no longer serve our country, despite what their personal feelings are on the subject. And they're involuntarily medically retired to enable them to get their earned retirement pay.
Okay. William, you're experiencing this firsthand. Tell your story about what happened to you in combat, and then talk about it in human terms from the perspective of what are the benefits you were expecting versus what you're getting.
Well, I was injured on March 29th, 2005. I was a military policeman assigned to the 155th Brigade Combat Team. We were in an area called the base of the Triangle of Death in Iraq during 2005. OIF-3, one of the most violent, dangerous periods of the war. And we were doing a routine convoy escort, driving to Baghdad. I'll kind of keep it short, but we got about 15 miles southeast of Baghdad, and a sandstorm hit. We had to do a little staggered vehicles, and long story short, I ran over an IED. It was a pressure plate IED. We're thinking it was a 155 millimeter artillery shell, most likely an Iranian EFP. And the engine block went through me, traumatically took my legs, as well as injured the 3 other men in my vehicle. To put it in human terms, we're retired in name only. I guess that's the best way to put it. We get the benefits of being called retired, but the federal government withholds our retirement as an offset every month in order to receive a VA disability. And we're being punished for our sacrifice. You know, there are soldiers and sailors, airmen, Marines that spent 16, 17, 18 years of their life. And they get involuntarily, as David just said, medically retired from their injuries, and their retirement is taken from them, all because of their sacrifice in combat. And I think that's the major issue here.
Yeah, a couple of technical questions so folks can understand where this issue is coming from. So, David, you mentioned that you're talking about medically retired
Yep.
people that were injured in combat, but also 20-year plus retirees, military retirees, or is it a combination of the two? Is it both?
All right. So our 20-year retirees who retired under normal retirement, they are already covered as long as they have a VA disability rating of 50% or more. They're already receiving their concurrent receipt. Okay. So our medically retired Chapter 61 combat disabled veterans, most simply put, because they caught a bullet, because they were blown up, or that they inhaled hazardous materials, went ahead and lost their military retirement, their time in which they earned. Because when they joined, my brother joined at 18, William joined at 17. They went ahead and started a career of service for their country. They went ahead and gave. They left their blood on the battlefield, and they are denied their retirement pay because of two laws. One that went back to 1891. Who the administration was trying to eliminate people joining the Navy at 14, retiring at 34, and joining the Army. Okay, that was what their premise was. Somehow it morphed into 10 days before the invasion of Normandy, the greatest amphibious invasion of all time. The Roosevelt administration and his Congress added combat disability compensation into that 1891 law that forbid concurrent receipt, meaning that you cannot receive your retirement pay that you earned for the years of service and veterans disability in which you receive for your lifetime compensation for the wounds in which you went ahead and incurred. They're two different things, and it needs to be resolved. But it's quite obvious that in 1944, on May 27th, 1944, that the Roosevelt administration was doing this purely as a cost savings measure, because in the next 2 months, 10,000 American casualties were the result. And right now, today, there's 59,000 combat disabled veterans who are in this retired in name only, who are paying the wounded warrior tax. And that doesn't mean the ones who've died waiting. So the best data that I have since 2008, 16,000 of our finest, our combat disabled veterans have died waiting, and 125 die every single month. There's been 1,000 legislative days that Congress has had over the last 3 Congresses, the 117th, 18th, and 19th, ever since 2020, for them to go ahead and go to the floor and vote on a legislative vehicle that contains the Major Richard Starr Act.
Wow. Well, we've got to take a commercial break real quick. When we come back, we'll hear from the commander of the American Legion in a real cold open video, and then we'll come back to you, William. I want to talk some more about this because it's important that people understand the technical pieces of it, because there's some not misinformation out there, but there's multiple sets of info out there. And some people maybe going, hey, I thought we solved this problem. I'm trying to ferret that out and make sure we get that on the record. We'll be right back with David Starr and William Brooks, two American heroes.
Wheat, corn, soybeans, gold, silver. These are commodities. Not because a government said so, because they're scarce, they store, they divide, and everybody on Earth wants them. Now run freeze-dried food through that same list, scarce the moment a crisis starts. Sits sealed on a shelf for 25 years. No freezer, no rotation, no attention from you, ready the day you need it. Divides down to a single, sealed pouch, and demanded by every human being alive, every single day. Here's the difference. Gold holds value. Silver holds value. But you can't eat either one. Freeze-dried food is the only commodity on that list that feeds your children the same day it buys you something. A grain elevator is a bank. So is your basement. The commodity is the same. The only question is whether you're holding a contract on it or holding the actual food. Our freeze-dried food is real food. Real meals, water removed, sealed for 25 years on a shelf. It isn't paste, and it isn't powder. It's dinner, and it's also leverage. 2 years put away to eat. 1 more year set aside strictly to trade. That's not hoarding. That's holding a position in the one commodity everybody needs. Be smart. Be prepared. Own the commodity you can actually eat. Order your freeze-dried supply today at worldviewstore.com.
60 bills that are wrapped into this act will get passed, 30 of which we have resolutions supporting, including resolutions for Gold Star mothers, including resolutions that involve mental health that's obviously much needed in the veteran community, and the Major Richard Starr Act. We think those things are worth fighting for and saving the money and applying towards veterans instead of being lost. And that's why the American Legion supports the act.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Training Tuesday, and we're talking about the Take Care of America's Veterans Act and the Major Richard Starr Act that's within that, or it could be a standalone bill. I don't care what Congress does with it. It needs to be passed because people are retired in name only, as the current Army soldier, the brother of Major Richard Starr, David Starr, just said moments ago in the first segment that people are retired in name only and they're being charged a wounded warrior tax when they have been medically retired and they were wounded on the battlefield and deemed so by their military service. Said, we welcome back David Starr and William Brooks, two wonderful Army soldiers. And William, so you were combat. Let me make sure I understand for the audience out there. You were combat wounded. You lost your legs, again, and multiple other injuries, obviously, in combat in Iraq. So they brought you back. You spent 13 months or so in Walter Reed, and then eventually you were medically retired, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so you're medically retired. Is it a correct assumption that you weren't at the 20-year point where you could take a normal military retirement?
That'd be correct. I was 23 when I was injured. I turned 23 in Iraq, and about 5 weeks later, I was injured and I retired at 24. So now I joined at 17. So I had 7 years of service. I was an E5. So you're correct. The opportunity to serve 20 years was taken away.
Absolutely.
And I understand that's part of it. That's what you sign up for, and there's the risk involved. However, Congress back in, I think it was 2004, passed concurrent receipt for 20-year retirees to get both their VA disability and their retirement. So this idea that people aren't getting both is wrong. And to I guess to compare it, there's a lot of misunderstanding what VA disability is compared to what retirement is. VA disability is not Social Security disability. VA disability is a rating given by the VA based on what you've sacrificed, what you've given up. It has nothing to do with. I think the term disability is wrong. It's more of compensation for what you gave, and how much you gave. And your retirement is a separate fund. And so every month, I get VA disability, when I check my retired LES form, there is a certain amount of money withdrawn every month. It has been for over 21 years now. And so for over 21 years, I have not been receiving my retirement pay even though I am retired, they give you all the other benefits of being retired, except for the most important part, the pay.
Yeah. So so when you get medically retired, do you start, if you weren't getting disability, you would be getting military retirement pay.
You have to choose, correct?
Uh,
You choose.
okay. But if you chose military retirement pay, what level would you get? 20 years as whatever rank
No,
you were at, or how
I would
does that
only
work?
I would get 7 years at E5. That's the
Okay.
years I served and the
All
rank
right.
that I was. That's it.
Yeah.
Not asking for 20 years or what could have
Mhm.
been or what I might have achieved. It's simple, only what I earned.
Yeah,
Last 7
I'm
years.
just trying to lay
Yep.
it out for folks so they understand it. And
Yep.
when you were medically retired, you were given a disability rating, correct?
Correct. I'm
And
100% permanent total from the VA, 100%
mhm.
permanent total from the Department of War. I'm, so there is obviously when you have severe catastrophic injuries, losing
Mhm.
limbs or being paralyzed or things like that,
Yeah.
it's a kind of an open and shut case there for me. So yes.
Yeah, so that when you get that VA disability pay and you see the LES for military retirement, that all of us that are retired normally, but may have combat injuries associated with it, we see our LES. If you're over 50% as a military retiree, you get concurrent receipt. If you're below 50% disability, you don't get concurrent receipt. And you guys never are able to achieve concurrent receipt of your
Correct.
military
You can be
retirement and your disability.
and to put it in better perspective, and I mean no disrespect to anyone
Mhm.
who's never
Yeah.
deployed. It's the luck of the draw, honestly. And I'm extremely grateful and respectful for every human being that's ever raised their right
Mhm.
hand and served this country, and I sincerely mean that.
Yeah.
However, if someone who's never deployed or never deployed to a combat zone, for example, can spend
Mhm.
20 years in, they can file for VA disability because they have earned over their 20 years,
Right. Right.
whether they were in the airborne, whether it doesn't matter what they're doing, their knees, their back, there's other issues, and they have rightfully and
Mhm.
justifiably earned their disability compensation, but they're able to draw both. But those of us who were combat wounded, who nearly lost our lives, who gave pieces of our bodies, our minds,
Mhm.
lost friends, but specifically those of us that left parts of our body on the battlefield, we don't get that opportunity. Simply, we're punished because of what we sacrificed. That we weren't able to give that 20 years because we did what we were told and gave. I won't say gave it all because the ones that gave it all didn't come home, but
Mhm.
we came pretty close to that. We're the ones that are punished and not given that retirement.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at because using myself as an example, I'm a regular commissioned officer, military retiree, but I have combat disability, but I'm not penalized the wounded warrior tax because I was able to get to the retirement point before I got those disabilities. Uh, that's correct. That's accurate, right? There are others
Yeah.
that if you got to 20 years or beyond and you were retirement eligible, you get the same wounds you had. You would get, not you, but that individual would get concurrent receipt. Is that accurate?
That's very accurate.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to get at.
Very accurate.
All right. So not only are you being charged a wounded warrior tax, you're being penalized for not getting to the 20-year retirement because this law has remained in place. That's Rob Maness's opinion, and man, we got to fix that. That is not just it's not just a technical issue; it's a moral issue in my mind.
Agreed. And I try to be careful how I put it. I don't want to be overly political or overly offensive to anyone who may or may not share my beliefs. But Congress and our elected leaders have no qualms about sending us to war, right? They have no
Mhm.
qualms about sending us to war, but it seems like when it's time to take care of the warrior, there just doesn't seem to be enough funds, and I think that's kind of a slap in the face. There's endless amounts of money they can print for planes, missiles, bombs, everything else. We can give foreign aid till we're blue in the face, but when it
Mhm.
comes to taking care of the men and women who sacrifice their minds and bodies for this country, there always seems to be, well, we don't know that we got the money just yet. So I found that a little disturbing, if I'm going to be honest with you.
I'm glad you're going there, and don't worry about people. I want you to be open and honest. Don't worry about people being upset about this conversation. People should be upset about this conversation, William. My goodness, we should never have this conversation. I've worked as part of a group called Military Veterans Advocacy that was created to get the Navy guys their Agent Orange benefits back. And do you know how many times that bill died in Congress? Almost for 20 years. It died in Congress until a spouse found a study by the Australians that took another 10 years to convince the U.S. Veterans Administration to take seriously, only because NBA beat them in court. So I totally get it, and we need to have this conversation. It's a tough conversation, man, and it's ludicrous that we have to continue to do this.
And real quick,
go ahead.
And I don't mean to interrupt you, but you brought up a good point about the Vietnam veterans, Korea, and let's go back even further. So while I may have gone 21 years without my retirement, there are Vietnam, Korean veterans, Gulf War veterans, everybody before me, 30, 40, 50 years, that have had it way worse than I did, and that ship has sailed for them. So let's put that in perspective as well. So, and I'm always want to thank the veterans that came before me, the Gulf War, the Vietnam, the Korean veterans, the World War II veterans, the Cold War veterans, those guys and gals have fought for the benefits that even though we may gripe a little bit, that we still benefit. We still have, but we're better today than they were because of the battles they fought. And I want to be able to leave that legacy for veterans in the future. So.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for saying that. David, to bring you in here, what is the current status? And folks, there is a law on the books in the United States of America called PAYGO is the nickname for it. It's pay as you go. And it requires that any new legislation have what's called a pay for in it, where you're finding the money in the current budget in order to pay for this new legislation. And it even applies to veterans compensation legislation. Now, I've fought for many, many years now in my various advocacy roles and running for U.S. Senate, by the way, to end that process for veterans bills, because veterans should never have to find the money to pay for it, because they usually take the money out of that department's program budget in order to pay for the new benefits. And that is astoundingly cruel. It is immoral, and it violates what President Lincoln said, that we will take care of he who is born the battle, to paraphrase the mission of the VA, and his widows and children. Okay? Yep. It is immoral that we continue to do that. So, David, tell us what the status of the Richard Starr Act is right now, and then we'll get into that plus the CABA in the next segment.
Will do. So right now, the Major Richard Starr Act, the standalone bill was basically a framework. Any bill that is put forth that does not have a dedicated funding source with it is basically a framework, because until you add a funding, there is no way to push forward, because it requires what's called statutory funding, in which the 2010 PAYGO law goes ahead and is applied to. And at that point, the Congress that was in the majority at that point went ahead and voted for it along party line vote. So at that point, President Obama and his Congress approved it. And right now, it is the center of controversy, because this bill, while the military retirement fund is fully funded to cover this, the way that the PAYGO law states and the way that the Congressional Budget Office scores it, we have to have an offset, and it's between $9 billion and $13 billion is the score for the Major Richard Starr Act.
Okay. All right, we got to take another break. When we come back, we'll see another
Yep.
cold open video talking about TACABA, the Take Care of America's Veterans Act. And I want to go into with you guys what's going on with the veterans organizations, because I've been very disappointed with what's happening over the last 3 or 4 months. And I want to get your take on what is the issue here. We'll be right back with David Starr and William Brooks, 2 U.S. Army soldiers, American heroes, talking about TACABA and the Major Richard Starr Act and why it's important, and it's a must-pass piece of legislation.
Take a look at the water you just poured. It looks clean, it tastes fine, but what's really in it? Lead, fluoride, arsenic, chlorine, pesticides, PFAS forever chemicals, pharmaceutical residues, and bacteria. Every single day, these toxins flow straight from your tap into your glass, into your family. It's time for Sentry H2O from Worldview Water. Sentry H2O is the ultimate water treatment technology, designed to remove harmful toxins, balance your water's pH, and enrich it with essential minerals like calcium and magnesium, the way nature intended. From commercial-scale systems to whole-house filtration to crisp, delicious drinking water right at your kitchen sink and shower, Sentry H2O delivers cleaner, healthier water everywhere you need it. No plumber, no tools, no plumbing knowledge required. Perfect for homes, apartments, rentals, RVs, refrigerators, and more. Because everyone deserves access to clean, healthy water. Visit worldviewwater.net. That's worldviewwater.net.
Donald Trump held the VA accountable and gave veterans healthcare choice. Under Biden, bureaucrats brought back the failures. Now Congress has the chance to make Trump's reforms permanent. The Take Care of America's Veterans Act builds on Trump's Mission Act, locking community care access into law through the Veterans Access Act. Tell Congress to take care of our veterans.
Nobody deserves it more than our veterans.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show, and we're discussing the status of the Taking Care of America's Veterans Act and the Major Richard Starr Act with 2 U.S. Army soldiers that are impacted by all of this legislation, but especially the Richard Starr Act. And David Starr, Richard's brother, is with us today, and William Brooks is with us today, who is a combat wounded veteran, medically retired, who receives no retirement pay because of this despicable offset that is required, and that's what the Richard Starr Act is supposed to fix. So, David, let's start with you on the Taking Care of America's Veterans Act and where we're at today. I know it passed. Did it pass the House, or it passed out of committee in the House?
So the Major Richard Starr Act has never received a vote organically. Okay. So in both the Senate and the House, it was placed under the jurisdiction of the Armed Services Committee because retirement pay is not a VA benefit organically. It is a responsibility of the services for every soldier, every serviceman that serves. Each year, the military has to deposit X amount of dollars into the military retirement fund. This was established since 1984. And for every year of service, your branch of service has put in your money. So in this case, Williams, his 7 years of service, the Army has put into military trust fund X amount of dollars to cover his retirement pay. And that money that is deducted from his pay, it does not leave the military trust fund. It stays in there. Matter of fact, they're required by law to go ahead and invest into T-bonds. And they have made interest off of the money that they have garnished from Brooks and every single year. So there's about $43 billion in garnished wages from the decades of Chapter 61 service members, and they have made over $25 billion in interest in that time off of the blood, literally the blood of our service members. So right now, the Major Richard Starr Act is bundled with the Take Care of America's Veterans Act. It is the cornerstone of it. There is a lot in there, but right now, Take Care of America's Veterans Act is the first piece of legislation, let's call it a legislative vehicle, that has delivered a means to fund the Major Richard Starr Act. They've had seven years, and this is the third Congress to go ahead and have it, and they have never had the guts to go ahead and put a funding source. It is the most bipartisan supported legislation by itself, but it's easy to support something that does not have funding. The moment that someone decides to go ahead and ask for unanimous consent or for a means to fund it, it has been shot down in committee, primarily the Armed Services Committee. Senator Blumenthal has asked 8 times for unanimous consent to go ahead and pass the Major Richard Starr Act. And all those times, a single lone senator has gone ahead and denied the vote on it. So it all started last October with down in Mississippi, the chairman of the Armed Services, the Senate Armed Services Committee, Senator Roger Wicker, went ahead and objected to the Major Richard Starr Act. He's objected to it being included in the NDAA. Every single year, there's an amendment to put in there. So this year, after the Veterans Administration in January went ahead and testified to Congress that they were going to go ahead and complete the 15 body systems update to the rating schedules. And that previously they have updated 11 of the 15. And basically, Congress, two decades ago, mandated that the Veterans Administration update their rating schedules to utilize modern medical technology. So basically, they were taking a rating schedule that was written in 1945 and applying it to today's standards. So in 2024, the rating schedule for GERD went ahead and went into place. 1.5 million veterans lost the ability to go ahead and utilize that because of the new rating schedule change. There was tens of billions of dollars that was veterans funded dollars that was lost to the veteran community. Now that rating schedule back in 1945, there wasn't Prilosec, there wasn't Pepsid, there wasn't a whole lot of different modern medical things that makes GERD more bearable on a day-to-day life. So what the Veteran Services Committees went ahead and did, they saw an opportunity to pick up the ball on the Major Richard Starr Act and to go ahead and allow our service members to collect both their earned retirement pay and their veterans compensation. And they are doing this by utilizing the cost savings that the Veterans Administration has been working on since 2022, okay, that for primarily sleep apnea. In 1945, sleep apnea, it still is a serious thing, but there wasn't a CPAP machine. That was invented in 1981. There wasn't stimulators. 2015, they're utilizing modern medical technology to go ahead and do it. There's a proposed $57 billion of veterans benefit funding that was going to be lost to the veterans community. And the both of the Veterans Affairs Committee took a stand that they were not going to allow that funding to leave, that they were going to go ahead and provide finally a path for our 59,000 combat disabled veterans to receive their earned retirement. For the Love Lives On Act, for our survivors and family members to be able to reestablish a new family, for our millions of veterans to go ahead and receive health care at their choice, to give them a timeline, 21 days. If you cannot receive an appointment in the Veterans Administration system, that you will automatically be able to use community care. And there's a lot of pushback on that, and there's a lot of rhetoric that says that Congress has not done this before. Well, Congress has. You just mentioned it, the Blue Water Navy and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Congress in the for the Agent Orange, okay, they went ahead and put into legislation that they made a presumptive opinion that if you were exposed, if you were this, that the Veterans Administration is to automatically assume the nexus so that you could receive your disability rating. They did it with the PAC Act, with the very thing that cost my brother's life and stuff. In inhaling the fumes. So there is precedence, and it goes back to 1997, even when Congress mandated that the VA would not pay any disabilities for that was caused by tobacco use and stuff, and they reallocated that money towards something else. So there is precedence. There is a need. And our combat disabled veterans need something now. And we are asking that Congress next week in the House, that they go ahead and vote on Take Care of America's Veterans Act. And then on the 14th, that the Senate go ahead and vote on to Take Care of America's Veterans Act. We no longer want a unanimous consent. Too easy to go ahead and deny, and nobody is on record. We want our members of Congress to go ahead and vote in September so that the American people have a record to go ahead and reflect on when they go to the polls in November.
Yeah, absolutely. William, you and I are both from Mississippi. Have you spoken with Senator Wicker or his staff about this issue?
Well, I've spoken with the staff. In full disclosure, back in October when this happened, that's kind of what really pushed me into the limelight, pushed me into the, I guess, the more advocacy part of the Richard Starr Act, was the fact that he was the lone vote to kill unanimous consent. And but there's a backstory there. So Senator Wicker was an original co-sponsor of the bill 3 years prior.
That's what I thought.
He had taken pictures with David's brother, Richard Starr, the namesake, as well as his widow. And so this goes back to what we were talking about earlier about you saying that it's one thing to be for something, it's easy to To advocate for something or say you're in favor of it, it's a different thing to when you're actually held accountable and actually have to vote. And so that was the most shocking part of it all. Was here's a man who claims to be in favor of veterans. He's on the Senate Armed Services Committee. He had, and you know, he again was a co-sponsor of the bill. Takes photo ops with major star's widow. Claims to be for it, but then when it's time to pay for it, no, I'm going to kill it and call it double dipping. And that's a slap in the face. I mean, it's a big time slap in the face, especially for someone like himself who is a retired Air Force reservist who I have no idea, but he qualifies for concurrent receipt himself. But he doesn't want to pay for those of us who sacrifice the most. I find it abhorrent and disgusting.
Yeah. Do you think it's well, he's involved. He's the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, so he's involved in the National Defense Authorization Act and that funding piece that on the retirement pay issue that you guys brought up earlier, that it comes out of the Department of War's budget. So that's why he's involved. I'm just wondering what the issue is, because it sounds to me, David, like the funds are there. There's a built-in pay for the Richard Starr Act itself inside of the retirement fund, where these guys' pay has been being garnished all these years, and a lot of them have died, and then that money's still there and being invested and earning interest. Is that not correct? Is that not what I heard from you?
Yes, sir. It is the belief of the community that is there. There is no way, because of the current laws, they cannot go ahead and utilize that funding mechanism. So
let's take our last break, and we'll dive back into this right after this commercial break. I'm talking with David Starr and William Brooks about the Take Care of America's Veterans Act and the Major Richard Starr Act. We'll be right back on the Rob Maness Show.
Friends, this is Brandon Howes. For more than a year now, I've been teaching through the book of Revelation, and the response from you has been overwhelming. You've asked me again and again, when are you going to put this study in print? We want to mark it up. We want to share it with our families. Well, it's here. My brand new 2-volume commentary on the book of Revelation, verse by verse, chapter by chapter. This is not a watered down, allegorized replacement theology approach to Revelation. This is a literal, grammatical, historical study, the way the Lord intended his word to be read. And I connect the prophecy of Revelation to the headlines you're watching unfold right now, the rise of global government and the convergence of end-time events the Lord Jesus warned us about. Folks, we are living in serious days, and there has never been a more important time to understand what God has told us about what is coming. Get your 2-volume Revelation commentary today at worldviewstore.com. That's worldviewstore.com.
Well, there's a veterans industrial complex too. And, you know, the traditional names, the VFW, they've got big offices in Washington, D.C., and they are invested in one thing, namely a bigger VA budget. A bigger VA budget means more programs that they collaborate with. They say it is to serve their members, but if you talk to their members, which is what we actually did in the organization, is like, hey, we don't care what VFW headquarters thinks. We care what the post level thinks. What do those guys think? They're saying, hey, why am I driving 200 miles to go to some hospital where I'll wait for months for an appointment when I could be seen inside my own community if the dollars followed me and I wanted to do that locally? Well, the VA hates that because it would, heaven forbid, their budget might reduce or their facilities might not be used as robustly, then they don't keep getting the money. Well, then the vets groups don't benefit as much from that. So it's a typical swampy feedback loop.
What traditional veterans organizations?
But the VFW, talking about disabled American veterans.
All the pamphlets you see on the VA wall.
It's
That's
the fun,
what you're talking about.
It's the funny hats crowd.
Yeah.
Yes, and I respect them, their service, all of that. But they don't serve the interest of their members. It's just like the unions. Like when you go, why does Donald Trump have overwhelming support from union members, but yet the union bosses keep endorsing Joe Biden? It's because they don't actually reflect at some point in Washington, D.C., the interests of their members. They lose touch with the interests of their members because it becomes about perpetuation. And it's not, I know that in Washington, D.C., they're not actually trying to fight for reform or real overhaul at the VA. They just have they have a seat at the table and they like that seat. They don't have any power except in Washington. In Washington, they still have a lot of power. You know why? Because they'll put out press releases. And press releases are like gold, little snowflakes in Washington. And they'll also have PACs, and they also give money. And they'll show up at press conferences behind you in uniform saying, we support, and they love to be bipartisan because they don't want to be pigeonholed as one or the other. Yeah. And so they support everything that is just more money for the status quo.
Maness Show, and we're talking about the primary veterans issue of the last, I think, 5 to 6 years, and that is the Major Richard Starr Act to give concurrent receipt to medically retired combat wounded veterans that already are getting 100% VA-rated disability, and their retirement pay is being kept in the retirement fund and garnishing their pay because they're medically retired. That's ridiculous. That's what the Major Richard Starr Act will fix, and the money's there. The money is there inside the service department's retirement fund that's been drawing interest for years and years and years. And my guest today is David Starr and William Brooks, 2 U.S. Army soldiers that are fighting for the TCABA Act and the Major Richard Starr bill to get passed. I had to play that clip because I'm a life member of every one of the veterans organizations that Pete was talking about there. And that interview was before he became the Secretary of War, talking about his book, The War on Warriors, that I think all of us are very familiar with now. But every time I go to Washington, D.C., guys, and I go by those palace headquarters buildings, I think about how those organizations, until we beat the VA in court and the Blue Water Navy bill was finally going to get passed because the Military Veterans Advocacy Team beat the VA in court, that those organizations, they didn't sign up to support the legislation every year until it was passed, and then they tried to take credit for it. Yep. And that's ridiculous. Same thing with the politicians, on both sides of the aisle. They'll come out, like you guys said, and they'll get in, do press conferences with you and say they support you until it comes to where literally the money beats the road. Like we were talking about before. Go ahead, David.
Sorry.
Go ahead, William.
Real quick. So to put this in perspective about the Major Richard Starr Act and the support we had or have had in the past, over 300 members out of 435 were co-sponsors in the House. 78 out of 100 were co-sponsors in the Senate. Yet, here we are 7 years into it, and we still can't get it passed. That's the most asinine part about this. Is you have a group of people, again, claiming to be for this and, beating their chest, man, we support veterans, blah, 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 blah. And then when you have to actually time to go vote on it, well, all of a sudden there's just excuse after excuse, finger pointing. Well, the Democrats did this, the Republicans did that. But we don't pay you to squabble. We pay you to sit down at the table and come up with a solution. This should be a truly bipartisan effort. This has nothing to do with political affiliation. Okay. I wasn't a Republican or a Democrat when I was serving overseas, and neither were my comrades. We were Americans. And I think that is lost with the swamp creatures in D.C. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to really reemphasize.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think all of us feel that way. And you're wearing a uniform. There's no politics involved, no partisanship, especially when you're spilling American blood. Your own American blood, especially in sacrificing your health and family sacrificing it. Because we never get those years back. You can't get your legs back. Richard has passed away now from his wounds.
Yes, he was.
Literally. So he's not coming back. But his family that's out there deserves some compensation. Go ahead, David. We got about 2 minutes left, guys. I want to give y'all an opportunity to talk a little bit more about how people can help you.
Yeah. So right now, William and I are with an organization called the Veterans Justice Alliance, and our webpage is veteransjusticealliance.org. We are mission focused, single item organization. We are not a VSO. We are a veterans advocacy group that is dedicated to the passage of the Major Richard Starr Act. And that's it. We are not right or left. We are just focused on that item there. And any support we would gladly go ahead and do. We are trying to make a great effort in September on Capitol Hill to go ahead and pass the act. That's the name of our Facebook group, and we are just asking for a vote on Take Care of America's Veterans Act, and to go ahead and finally get justice for our combat disabled, wounded veterans. William deserves his retirement pay. My brother deserved his retirement pay. My brother has been dead for 5 years waiting. 16,000 combat disabled veterans have died waiting.
Yep, it's sad, unfortunate, and we're going to fix that. Obviously you have my support, and I think September 15th and 16th, you all are going to be in the Capitol.
Yes, sir.
You want to speak to that for about 5 seconds?
Well, we're going to be there, and I'd really like to emphasize to your listeners, a lot of people want to know what's the best way to help. Very simple. If you want to help us, please call and email your congressmen and senators, and light their phones up, light their emails up, let them know that you no longer, that you stand with us, with combat wounded veterans, that this is unacceptable behavior.
Absolutely right. Well, David, William, thank you very much for your service. Thank you for your sacrifice, your family's sacrifice for our great country, and your continued service to this country. I don't think, as I said, I don't think a lot of people understand what's really going on sometimes because of the technical terminology and those kind of things. And hopefully we have laid that out, and we'll get even more people than already are supporting this bill.
Thank you, sir.
We appreciate you.
All right, tomorrow's Whistleblower Wednesday. I have Caleb Collier from Church and State podcast on. It's going to be the heat. So I'll see you then.
We live in uncertain times. In fact, we live at a time when our own governments all over the world are warning us that there could be big problems with our power grid. World War III seems to be right on the horizon. Let me ask you this. Do you have